Hey beauty, and welcome to the very first episode of Behind the Lash with Tammy. I'm Tammy, lash artist, educator, and the founder of Beauty by Tammy. And today I want to take you all the way back to where this journey really started. Not the highlight reel version, but the honest version. Because before the products, before the brand, before the success, there was a girl who had a dream, who made mistakes, who doubted herself, and who learned everything the hard way. My hope is as you listen, you'll hear pieces of your own story too, because none of us get here without a few detours, breakdowns, and breakthroughs. So let's go back to the beginning, to the moment I realized my path was about to change forever. I started this podcast because I really wanted a space for you to feel seen and heard. The last 5 years has been hard. I don't know if anybody else is feeling the exact same way, but if you are not alone. I really am now, after 5 years, am ready to open up about how I got here, how I pushed through, and hopefully share my story so that it can help somebody out there who may be going through the same things. So I just want to let you get to know me a little bit. And in future episodes, I will go deeper into different parts of my life where I've learned those really hard-earned lessons and share those with you in future episodes. So let's go back to the beginning. I didn't grow up imagining I'd become a lash artist, but I always knew that I was creative. I just loved being creative, loved arts and crafts, and always liked working with my hands and creating things. Nothing made me feel more fulfilled than making something and being proud of it. I also loved beauty and fashion. So I was always a girly girl, loved shoes, clothing, fashion, makeup, just anything that was beauty or fashion related. So I had a side hustle and I was doing hair and bridal makeup for the longest time. Carrying my makeup trunk all over hotel rooms in the GTA. And for those who are listening farther away, the GTA is the Greater Toronto area. I would get bookings and mostly bridal hair and makeup, and I would go, do bridal makeup for the entire bridal team or the mother-in-law, their mother of the bride. And so that was really just a side hustle that I did on the side. My main job in my previous career before I became a lash artist and an entrepreneur was I was a store manager for a clothing company called Jacob. And Jacob is a women's retailer, a Canadian women's retailer with over 30 years of history. Shout out to all my Jacob girls who worked for me back then, who were my staff. I really, really loved that job. I was the store manager. I was the trainer for my district. So I trained all the managers that came through in my district and all the customer service associates. And I loved training. I loved just having that responsibility and having that impact for my company. The company really treated me well. I got promoted to the highest level store, which is the Jacob, the triple banner store on Bloor Street, right across from Holt Renfrew, Holt's. And that's the last stop to becoming a district manager. All managers need to end up at that store, and that's your final stop. I had a 1-year contract to finish my store manager position there. Then the next stop would be to get my promotion to become a district manager. 6 months into that contract, I got pregnant. And I always wanted to be pregnant and had dealt with infertility for 5 years after getting married. And we just, had a lot of trouble getting pregnant on our own. So this was completely a surprise to us. And we were extremely happy with the news. However, this became a turning point in my career because it ended up being a high-risk pregnancy. I started bleeding. I had a condition called placenta previa that landed me in the hospital on bed rest at 21 weeks. And my baby was only 1.5 pounds. And I remember being so scared going to the hospital, and they gave me an injection that was supposed to make the baby's lungs grow bigger should I deliver her that night. The doctor said to me, We have to do everything possible to keep her inside because one day in the womb equals 1 week outside in the world. And to give her a fighting chance, the rate of survival increases so much the longer she stays in the womb. I ended up in the hospital on bed rest, and I was in the hospital for 11 weeks until I had my baby by C-section, and she came early. She was premature. She was born at 35 weeks. So I lasted a really, really long time. Becoming a mom, I would say, is the turning point in my life. After I spent so much time in the hospital, I had the opportunity to rethink my life. Did I want to go back to the life that I had before, the career that I had before becoming a mom? I loved my job. I loved my career. Yes, I was crazy about fashion. Obviously, I was in a very promising career where I was getting promoted. The company definitely wanted me back after maternity leave. However, nobody talks about the pitfalls of a retail career. You are expected to work evenings, weekends, holidays. That kind of career is not conducive to having a family. I did everything. We would do merchandise moves, which meant that we would stay till midnight sometimes, 10 o'clock, 11, 12, after the store closes to put the new collection out. All that merchandising is done by the entire staff. As the manager overseeing everything, we have to be there. I knew that becoming a mom, I didn't want to go back to that life. I didn't want to go back to that kind of job. I knew something had to change. I knew at that point I wanted to be an entrepreneur and start a business because it can offer the freedom and flexibility that a job can't. So I made the decision to launch Beauty by Tammy in 2012 after my daughter Alexis was born. She was 1 at the time. Beauty by Tammy started out as a makeup beauty business. It was definitely not about lashes, at least not in 2012. I got my first set of lashes done around that time, and I fell in love. I just loved how lash extensions looked on me, how it made me feel. I have Asian lashes, and if anybody out there knows what Asian lashes are like, they grow down straight, and no matter what kind of curling mascara you use, within a few hours, the lashes go. So no matter what kind of mascara I used, it didn't matter if it was a drugstore brand or a designer brand, nothing worked on me. Having lash extensions done on me for the first time, it completely transformed the way I looked. I loved how it made my eyes look and how I looked awake, and it was like wearing makeup without wearing makeup. I was taken in. I was like, what is this sorcery? I became such a fan. As you can probably hear from the passion in my voice, I definitely fell in love with lashes right from the beginning. The salon owner who did my lashes, she said, for somebody who just gets lashes done, you talk about it a lot. Like, you really, really love it. And I think that you should get trained, because she knew about my beauty business. She said, you already do makeup and hair styling, like updos for your brides. You can add on lash extensions, offer it as a service to your clients. It was very complimentary for my business. I said, yeah, let's do it. Let's get trained. I got my first training with her. And she, she was a great trainer. A lot of people complain about their first training and they say, oh, it sucked, or, a lot of people have negative things to say. I have to remember at that time, there wasn't the training that we have now. There wasn't the products that we have now. I wouldn't say my training was bad. It was just basic. It was only what was available at the time. It was very basic. We didn't talk about humidity. We didn't talk about temperature and all the factors that go into, creating a great set of lashes for your customer. And so I just learned how to do the lashes. Like, I was doing it on a model. And I remember in the class, I was like mentally freaking out. this is so hard. And it didn't help that my model was an Asian model. Note to trainers, if you're going to use a model, do not use, fine Asian lashes as the model for a first-time student. You will freak her out the way I was, freaking out. It was really difficult. And I thought, oh my goodness, what did I do? Did I make a mistake? Like the self-doubt started to creep in and I was like, did I make a mistake? I want to share with you that we have to remember every expert starts as a beginner. At that time, I just didn't remember that or know that. And I really was very, very hard on myself. So if you're a beginner and you're just starting out in lashes, give yourself some grace. It is hard. Remember that if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. Lashing is a very highly technical skill. You need good eyesight, you need strong hands, you need to be good with your hands, very detail-oriented work, and you have to have the patience to be able to do this work. You also have to love it, because I think if you don't love it, you wouldn't have the patience, you would want to give up. That is a sign as to whether or not lashing is a right career for you. I did struggle for the first 2 years. And back then I was trained on classic lashes, and not even the classic lashes that you now get in a tray. I was trained on using a jar of loose lashes. They were just classic lashes that were loose. You had to shake, put it out, and then use a special technique with a tweezer to pick up the classic lash and then to put it on the clients. It was really, really difficult to lash in the beginning. Now, all of you get to use these amazing products and better adhesives. I mean, it's just a different time and place. After my first 2 years, the next turning point would be when volume was introduced. Volume was never a type of lash that was introduced. There was no such thing. And thank you to whoever created volume. I know that it came from Russia, and I know that whoever was inventing it, they thought, well, here's the weight of one classic lash, and if I can separate it into like 5 or 6 tiny little lashes that equal the same weight, I can create a way more fluff and a more beautiful effect. So thank you so much for the creator of volume lashing, because I fell in love, just like how I fell in love with classic lashes. Volume lashes was like a whole other level. And I always joke that volume lashes were made for Asian girls. If you're out there and you hear this and you feel me, leave me a comment if you agree. Volume lashes just transform the way we look and therefore the way we feel, because when you look good, you feel good, right? I knew that I wanted to get this advanced training. I wanted to learn about volume and mega volume. So I went to learn with the best of the best. I would say that when I trained with Lash Makers and Maven Artistry, those 2 trainers really changed my life. And I really, at that point, it was like how I was a beginner. And then after that, I went and practiced and implemented what I learned in their trainings and really got addicted to the training bug. From that point on, I took a total of 10 plus trainings. I know it sounds crazy, but what can I say? It wouldn't be the first time that I was called crazy before. I always joke that there was no Lash University, so I created my own. I definitely invested in myself. I fell in love with lashing. I knew that I had to go big or go home. The reason why I started lashing is because of my daughter, Alexis. When I first started lashing, you heard that it was just a side hustle. But when my daughter was diagnosed with autism at age 3, we knew that we needed to make a change. One of us, meaning me and my husband, had to take care of the family and finances and keep the lights on and a roof over our head. The other parent had to take her to all her therapy appointments. For those who don't know, autism or ASD, autism spectrum disorder, causes social deficits. It causes communication issues. There's language delays. Our daughter really needed therapy. She needed to see all the specialists. All of these appointments are during the daytime, a Monday to Friday. We have to say yes to any appointment that was available. to help her. I couldn't hold down a normal job or have a regular career. That's really why I fell in love with lashing, because it allowed me to be the parent, allowed me to be the mom that I needed to be for Alexis. At that time, I told my clients, listen, this is what we're dealing with as a family. My daughter was diagnosed and I need to be a mom first. I would book all of my doctors and therapist appointments. There's speech therapy, OT, ABA, which is applied behavioral analysis. All of these therapies she needed to go to. I would book all of my other appointments around Alexis's therapy schedule. Of course, my clients were so accommodating, and I really want to take a moment to thank all of those women who really understood what I was going through, who supported me, who were willing to work around my schedule because they said that I gave them the lashes of their dreams. I really am so grateful to them. So thank you to anyone who was a client of mine during that time. So here we are. After Alexis was getting better, I really was hoping that she would stabilize. And once she got better, at the back of my mind, I knew that I wanted to work on my career. After getting so much advanced training, people were asking me to train. I knew that I was already fully booked with my clientele. So yes, I wanted to start training. I decided to get certified as an educator with NALA, and I opened my training studio in 2017. Of course, when you have students, you need products. It was difficult to find the right products to put in my student kit. If you know me, only the best will do for my clients, for my students. That has always been my philosophy. At the time, there were a lot of good product lines out there, but there was just something missing in every single product line. I was buying a little bit from every single company that had lash products, and I was curating my own student kit. However, like the cost of having to pay shipping from multiple companies, it just created such a headache for me. And I didn't want to cut corners. I wanted to give my students the best student kit. I decided to really create my own. Instead of curating from multiple companies and spending all this money on extra shipping, I decided, let me be the best resource for my students. If I am taking all this trouble to curate my own line, I might as well start my own product line. That's when I launched my product line in 2018. I knew I wanted to always grow my career, and I've always dreamt of opening my own commercial space. My poor mom, she was getting screenshots of all the possible studio spaces that I either wanted to rent. So for 5 years, I planned to open a commercial space. I knew that once Alexis was, stable and she was doing well and thriving, then I could go back to my career, pick up where I left off and continue to grow it. And in 2019, I was searching for a commercial space. I met with a landlord of Pro Beauty Suites, and he said that there was going to be a brand new space, where I could open my suite. It was going to be called the Pro Beauty Suites Winston, and I felt, oh, wow, that is just 10 minutes from my house. Everything just lined up perfectly, and I was so excited. He said the building was a Bowring, and they were going to tear it down and renovate it. So it was going to be a completely new, beautiful space. I was just so excited. I signed the lease right away, and that was in July of 2019. It was supposed to open in January of 2020. Of course, with construction, there are always delays. January 1st turned into, we opened the last week of January 2020. I was so excited. Nothing could hold me back from my excitement. This was something that had been in the works for 5 years, and I finally could focus on my career again because Alexis was doing better. I opened my studio, my commercial space, the last week of January in 2020, and 6 weeks later, COVID hit. I know that I wasn't the only one going through it. I'm going to save the details of that story in a future episode because it really shook my world. I was very naive at the time when everybody said, okay, I'll see you in 2 weeks. We were just going to close down for 2 weeks. The impact of that really changed my life forever. Definitely took away from the excitement of my studio opening, my grand opening. I felt robbed of the excitement at the time because we were all dealing with this pandemic. None of us knew what that meant and what does it mean. We're all closing down at the time for 6 weeks. I just got to experience how amazing it was to have all my dreams come true. I doubled my client lists. I booked student trainings. I got my first wholesale order for my product line, a $10,000 wholesale order. I was so excited. I was going to be launching my wholesale program too. When COVID hit, it just pulled the rug from under me. The last 5 years has been about rebuilding my business and my life. I launched my products in 2022 and then have been dealing with some health challenges in 2023. It has been such a journey. I realized that success isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. You don't need to grow fast. You need to grow honestly. Your journey will never look like anyone else's. Mine was super painful, and those painful seasons often become the most important chapters. I know that I can't be the only one that feels behind. If you feel behind, you're right on time. That's what this podcast is about. I want it to be a place for you as a lash artist, as a mom, a small brand founder, a woman building themselves, or anyone going through it. You're not alone. I'm going to be sharing stories and lessons, honest truths, and all the moments that no one talks about. I want this space to feel like you have a friend who understands exactly what you're going through. You don't have to figure everything out like the way I did. Thank you so much for listening to the very first episode of Behind the Lash with Tammy. If this story resonated with you, it would mean the world if you tap follow. It helps the show reach more people who might need to hear this. And get ready, because in episode 2, we're diving into something every lash artist struggles with: retention. I'm breaking down the secrets I learned over the 10 plus years, the ones I wish someone had told me from the start. If you have questions or want me to cover something specific, send me a DM or a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for being here, beauty, and I'll talk to you soon.